ඔෆිස් එකේදී විතරක් නෙවෙයි මම දැන් ගෙදරදීත් IDD calls ගන්න SLT phone එකේ.
ඔබේ නිවසේ SLT දුරකථනය දැන් IDD පහසුකම සහිතයි.
Making headlines here at First at 9. Shifting the focus. UNP parliamentarians urged the Premier to oust SLFP ministers who backed the no-confidence motion. Paving the way. United National Party's General Secretary to make way for the party's restructuring by resigning. Taking on the challenge. New board of directors of SriLankan Airlines pledged to turn around the fortunes of the carrier.
The last year's losses, the year that we finished, is roughly around $100 million. But we hope within 2 to 3 years, we will turn it around.
Some way to go. European parliamentarians on international trade caution Sri Lanka, says much needs to be done pertaining to GSP Plus conditions.
The question might be how successfully they are implemented, but the progress is measurable.
Opening success. Sri Lankan weightlifters bagged 2 medals on the first day of the 21st Commonwealth Games Down Under. Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Ekanaika. We start with the local stories. While commending Sri Lanka's progress made in implementing international conventions, European parliamentarians on international trade caution Sri Lanka that much needs to be done in implementing international human rights conventions relevant to the GSP Plus facility. Delegates also made note that the government needs to keep the country on a path to reform.
A delegation of 6 members of the European Parliament Committee on International Trade arrived in Sri Lanka yesterday on a 2-day visit to follow up on Sri Lanka's commitments made in exchange for access to the European Union market.
We are, of course, interested in the overall political situation. We are interested in security issues, judiciary matters, because it's very important for overseas investors and European investors as well to be certain that Sri Lanka is a stable and predictable country. We are here mostly to debate issues related with GSP Plus scheme. We are very keen to cooperate to keep GSP Plus alive, and we are pretty certain that it will happen. It's necessary to speak a little bit about labor markets. Because those two things are connected, so we were curious about the implementation of some particular labor conventions and some international standards, and we'll be happy to help to go the same way together.
The EU Parliamentary Group Standing Rapporteur for South Asia, Sajid Karim, also commented on the recent situation of unrest in the Kandy district.
So far as the most recent situation that erupted in Kandy is concerned, I'm not satisfied that actually adequate policing protection was provided to those who were under attack. Therefore, there is a need today for the government to reach out to ensure that cohesion and good community relations are reinstated. A positive demonstration of that is going to be by ensuring that there is no impunity from prosecution for the perpetrators of these acts, whoever they may be.
Members of the delegation also had strong words on the manner in which both the EU and the West is looked at by certain elements in Sri Lanka.
I have read one headline in some newspaper that said that this is another EU scrutiny on Sri Lanka. No, it is not a scrutiny. We are not here to scrutinize anyone. We simply want to communicate.
There is quite clearly certain sections of political discourse in Sri Lanka that likes to push this message to the Sri Lankan people that there are demands that are being made from Europe and possibly elsewhere as well. That is simply not the case. The point is that actually Sri Lanka has to want to lift its standards for itself. And we believe that the people of Sri Lanka genuinely are committed to wanting to raise their own standards. Does Sri Lanka wish to adhere to international standards for the good of equitable law enforcement or not? I believe the vast majority of Sri Lankan people certainly do. So language is very important. I have heard use of the phrase in parliamentary debates here in Sri Lanka before that the European Union demands. We demand nothing. This is a journey we are undertaking as equal partners with Sri Lanka in order ultimately to arrive at a place where we have a strong Sri Lanka, an open Sri Lanka, a vibrant Sri Lanka, a tolerant Sri Lanka.
Definitely, Sri Lanka has adopted some necessary international conventions already. The question might be how successfully they are implemented, but the progress is measurable. We cannot say that those commitments haven't been kept. They were not, let's say, finished yet, but definitely they are being kept at the moment.
The issue of the GSP Plus scheme is that we have a review and monitoring mechanism, and one of the key things that we look for within that is a trend of improvements and a genuine commitment being shown with systems being put in place, ultimately allowing us to arrive at a situation that we know we will achieve the types of goals that we are looking for.
Now, newly appointed chairman and the board of directors of the loss-making national carrier SriLankan Airlines came before the media today for the first time since their appointment. The board of directors, along with its chairman Ranjith Fernando, was optimistic of the future fortunes of the carrier and expressed hope of turning SriLankan Airlines into a profit-making entity within 2 to 3 years. The relevant media briefing was convened at the premises of the national carrier this morning.
SriLankan Airlines was once a profit-generating carrier while under the management of the Emirates Airlines. All that, however, was to change in 2008 when the then government took over the complete control of the carrier's management, bringing an end to a decade-long partnership. Following the move, the fortunes of the national carrier transformed for the worse and incurred heavy losses. Between 2008 to 2014, SriLankan incurred a loss of 107 billion rupees, and in a bid to revive the carrier, the present government, after coming into power in 2015, planned to restructure the airline while seeking to enter into a public-private partnership as guided by a panel of experts. In a measure of support for the government's plans to restructure SriLankan, its board of directors, led by Ajit Dias, tendered their resignation in December of last year. A new board of directors was appointed to fill the void several days ago on the 2nd, with Ranjith Fernando as its chairman, while Mano Tittavella, Susantha Katugampola, Dr. Roshan Pereira and Air Marshal Kapila Jayampati making up the rest. Aviation consultancy firm Nairas has prepared the SriLankan Airlines final restructuring plan with assistance from the National Agency for Public-Private Partnership, which is to be adopted by the incoming board of the carrier. While addressing their maiden media briefing today, Chairman Ranjith Fernando expressed optimism of reviving the fortunes of the national carrier within 2 to 3 years.
So we are going to lay down the rules very clearly, and we are not going to interfere, and we will set targets for the management, make the changes that are necessary, and see that the airline is restructured. Just to come into the airline picture, today the airline is incurring losses, huge losses. The last year's losses, the year that we finished, is roughly around $100 million. So, and we have huge debts totaling to about $750 million. And also we may take decisions to change management if it is necessary, because that is part of the responsibility of a board. The most important decision that a board makes is to appoint management. That is what the shareholders have given to the board, and say you run and appoint people who can competently run the thing. So we feel that there are changes necessary. I mean, that is a very preliminary view that we take, and those changes will be made. Without that, the board can't run the airline. So now, a country like Sri Lanka, where tourism is a complete important component of our income generation, 40%, 30 to 40% of tourists who come here use Sri Lanka, and they are Sri Lankan. And Sri Lankan really goes after those tourists. They have flights, they promote tourism. So there are links that the national airline has with the rest of the economy. So there are advantages in having. No other airline will help our country to bring tourism to Sri Lanka. It is our national carrier that will really help So carrying your own flag and having your national anthem is a pride for an independent country, sovereign country. Consultants point out that we have at least 1,600, 2,000 people who are more than, we have 7,000 employees in the airline. So if you look at international norms, and they have pointed out, we are terribly overstaffed. But that's an issue we need to take on and handle carefully, because employment is involved. So we are not going to jump into that and sack people or do that. So, but if you ask for the reasons for the loss, there are so many of those. Biggest are interest payments, which we cannot bear. And we have bought aircraft at huge prices, more than the market prices. The lease rentals are more than market prices, way above market prices. In fulfilling the gap in capital that we need, because already we are having a negative equity of about $500 million, about $400 million, and we are making a loss today. So we can't continue to recapitalize. We can't expect the government to put in large amounts of capital into the airline to really restructure the airline. We have to also see other possibilities of getting other investors to come, and a strategic alliance will also help us in the operational areas.
Moving on with other local news, the much debated no confidence motion against Prime Minister and Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs, Ranil Wickremesinghe, was defeated in Parliament yesterday. 122 parliamentarians cast their votes against the motion, while only 76 cast in favour. 16 parliamentarians and ministers of the current government representing the UPFA, however, cast their votes in favour of the no confidence motion. Ultimately, the vote of no confidence against the Premier was defeated by 46 votes.
The no-confidence motion brought against Prime Minister and Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs Ranil Wickremesinghe was debated in Parliament for 12 hours yesterday. The vote of no confidence was taken up at 9:30 p.m. Speaker Karu Jayasuriya then revealed the results of the vote to the House.
ප්‍රතිඵල යෝජනාවට පක්ෂව ඡන්ද 76යි විරුද්ධව ඡන්ද 122යි නොපැමිණි 26යි.
The motion was defeated by 46 votes. The UNP, Tamil National Alliance, SriLankan Muslim Congress, Jathika Hela Urumaya and Tamil Progressive Alliance cast their votes against the motion. The JVP and 16 UPFA parliamentarians and ministers who represent the current government joined hands with the joint opposition, which brought the motion against the Prime Minister. SP Disanayaka, WDJ Seniviratna, Susil Premajayantha, Anuprapriya Darshanayapa, Chandima Veerakkodi and Dayasiri Jayasekara were the cabinet ministers representing the SLFP who cast their votes in favour of the motion. Meanwhile, state ministers Lakshmanyapa Abeyawardena, TB Ekanayaka, Dilan Pereira and Sudarshini Fernandapulle, who represent the SLFP, also cast their votes in favour of the no-confidence motion yesterday. SLFP deputy ministers Anuradha Jayaratna, Sumedha G. Jayasena, Lakshman Vasantha Pereira, Tharanath Basnayaka and Susantha Punchinilame cast theirs in favour of the motion as well. Deputy Speaker Tilanga Sumatipala too backed the no-confidence motion. Meanwhile, 26 parliamentarians were not present in the House during the voting process last evening. Among them were SLFP cabinet ministers Mahinda Amaravira, Dr. Sara Tamunugama, Nimal Siripala de Silva, Duminda Disanayaka, Faiza Mustafa, Mahinda Samarasinghe, Ranjit Siambalapitiya, Vijit Vijayamuni Soiza and Piyasena Gamage. SLFP state ministers Mohan Lal Grero, Lakshman Seniviratna, AHM Fauzi, MLAM Hizbullah and Sriyani Vijay Vikrama were also absent. At the same time, SLFP deputy ministers Lasantha Aligiyawanna, Manusha Nanayakkara, Indika Bandaranayaka as well as Arumugan Tondaman and Muthu Sivalingam, who represent Ceylon Workers' Congress, were absent in the House during the voting process last night. Meanwhile, SLFP parliamentarians Veerakumara Disanayaka, Malik Jayatilaka, Angajan Ramanathan and Sarathi Dushmantha were also absent during the vote. It is noteworthy that Deputy Minister Nishantha Muthuhetty Gamage and MP Kader Mastan, who signed the no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister, were also absent last night. Athuraliya Ratanathera, who won a parliamentary seat from the United National Front, didn't participate in the vote yesterday. Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, who holds an independent parliamentary seat following his removal from ministerial positions of the current government, meanwhile cast his vote against the motion. It is also a point of note that state ministers Palitha Range Bandara and Vasantha Senanayaka, who created an uproar over the motion, voted against it last night. Leader of the Elam People's Democratic Party, Douglas Devananda, also supported Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe during the vote of no confidence.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the necessary reforms within the United National Party will be done in the coming days with the support of all its members. The Prime Minister spoke on the subject while speaking to media following a function held at the UNP headquarters Sirikota this morning.
Following the defeat of the no-confidence motion brought against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe by the joint opposition in Parliament, the Premier visited the Hunupitiya Gangarama temple last night, accompanied by several UNP parliamentarians. In the meantime, a number of UNP supporters gathered at the main entrance of the parliamentary complex with a vote of no confidence underway and proceeded to celebrate following the motion's defeat. UNP supporters island-wide celebrated the defeat of the no-confidence motion. A function to welcome the Prime Minister following his successful navigation past the no-confidence motion was held at the UNP headquarters in Pitakotte this morning, which was attended by senior members of the UNP as well as ministers, parliamentarians and supporters.
We have to start a new journey now. We will move forward with a new program with everyone who will join to help the government. UNP will be reformed soon. We will bring forward new faces and get ready for the 2020 election. We are confident of moving forward strongly.
While speaking at the same event, Minister Kabir Hashim said that he would resign as UNP's General Secretary.
I am going to resign and I will hand over the letter to the Prime Minister today. The Committee on Party Reforms made a request to make several reforms within the party. I believed I have paved the way to appoint new office bearers.
A group of UNP parliamentarians, meanwhile, made a written request from Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to remove UPFA ministers from the national government who voted against the Prime Minister at the vote of no confidence yesterday. The request was made by 38 signatures, with the 38 signatures of parliamentarians of the UNP emphasising their opposition to such ministers remaining in the government while criticising it. Now, UPFA Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe insists that President Maithripala Sirisena never issued any directives on how to go about the no-confidence motion which was tabled against the Prime Minister. He stated this at a media briefing convened at the headquarters of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party today.
I would like to make it perfectly clear that President Maithripala Sirisena never issued directives when it came to the no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister, be it whether to vote for it, vote against it, or to abstain from voting. The President clearly stated that he does not want to be involved in the no-confidence motion and that from the 5th, irrespective of the verdict, and as the leader of the nation, he would continue to move forward with the government. He told all of us to collectively make a decision as the government and made it very clear that he cannot take part in it, as his responsibility is to lead the government and the nation.
Staying on the fallout of the no-confidence motion, the joint opposition says that the defeat experienced yesterday over the no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was due to the betrayal which came from the leadership of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. The group of MPs said this at a media briefing held at the parliamentary complex today.
A certain faction of the government agreed with our motion and voted against the Prime Minister. Now the government is in a crisis. This is the first time in history that a vote such as this took place. I say this with full responsibility that the leader of the opposition should resign. Now the Speaker must accept the majority which was shown in the Parliament by the joint opposition led by Mahinda Rajapaksa. We were told that there were 27 and another said there were 28 individuals from the UNP. That number could come down, so that is why we made the number into 12 and presented it to you. We told them not to vote for a losing motion and to vote against the motion so that they can protect their ministerial positions and we could obtain their help in the future. So the traitors weren't the MPs from the UNP. The traitor was the leader of the SLFP. Therefore, we would like to ask the public not to blame the UNP members.
Leader of the House, Lakshman Kiriyala, informed Speaker Karu Jayasuriya in Parliament today that the Judicature Amendment Bill will not be presented to the House as scheduled. He said the requested amendments outlined by the Supreme Court have not been made to the bill. The Supreme Court informed the Speaker of Parliament on the 22nd of March that the Judicature Amendment Bill needs to be passed with a two-thirds majority in Parliament, as certain clauses included in the bill require amendments to the Constitution. Speaker Karu Jayasuriya officially informed the determination of the Supreme Court to the Parliament on Tuesday. The Supreme Court determined that Section 12A1 of the bill is inconsistent with the Article 154p3a of the Constitution, and an amendment is required to be made to the Constitution to give effect to the Section 12A1 of the bill. The government brought in the bill to amend the Judicature Act No. 2 of 1978 with a view to set up a permanent High Court at bar to expedite the large number of pending cases in the country. Although the amended bill was to be presented in Parliament today, Leader of the House Lakshman Kiriyala informed the Speaker that the necessary amendments have not yet been made to the bill.
We won't be presenting the Judicature Amendment Bill today, as amendments still need to be made, as per the ruling of the Supreme Court. If we have the two-thirds majority for this bill, then we can pass it as it is. But we'd like to pass the bill with a simple majority. We need to make amendments to the bill to do so. We'd somehow pass the bill on the first week of May.
Meanwhile, Leader of the House today presented note of the supplementary allocations given from the Budgetary Support Services and Contingent Liabilities provisions made under the Department of National Budget as per the introduction note of the annual estimates. Accordingly, supplementary allocations worth approximately 7 billion rupees for 35 government institutions, including various ministries and departments, have been mentioned in the note for the period between 22nd of January to the 28th of February this year. Parliamentarian Bimal Ratnayaka raised questions on two particular allocations today.
Supplementary additional allocations worth 4.1 million rupees have been allocated to meet the expenditure of lease rental for a vehicle procured under operational leasing method of the Ministry of Special Assignment. Why do they need a vehicle? Then it says, as per the Cabinet decision on the 31st of January 2018, 342 million rupees in supplementary allocations have been given to settle outstanding contractual payments to CMC for providing infrastructure facilities to the Shangri-La Hotel project. We'd like to know why they are paying public money to Shangri-La. You have a responsibility to give a proper explanation on this. You are allocating 43 million rupees to buy a vehicle for a state minister and another 10 million rupees for the security of the Prime Minister. Then why are we giving 342 million rupees to Shangri-La?
Shangri-La we have given a brief description of the allocation. If they want, we can give a debate. Debate million
And let's now take a look at some other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
A 38-year-old woman riding a motorbike died on the spot after her motorbike collided with a tipper in the town of Suryaveva. A CCTV camera installed at a nearby shop caught the incident. A media briefing on the awareness and introduction of a healthy meal was held today together with the Sri Jayawardhanapura Hospital and the Waters Edge in Colombo. The agreement on the healthy meal plan was signed by Minister of Health, Nutrition and Indigenous Medicine, Dr. Rajitha Senaratne, and Minister of Megapolis and Western Development, Patali Champika Ranavaka.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, while commending the central bank's key policy rate relaxation announced yesterday, economists are also of the view that the motive behind easing lending rate may not be achieved if oil prices increase further, dealing a severe blow to the economy. The central bank cut its ceiling policy rate by 25 basis points to 8.5%, making the first cut since April 2015. Speaking at the Monetary Policy Media Briefing yesterday, Governor of the Central Bank, Indrajit Kumaraswamy, said the tightening phase of policy was over and it is now time to revitalise the economy from lower than expected growth.
Yesterday's surprise central bank lending rate cut came in a backdrop where the Sri Lankan economy recorded its weakest economic growth in 16 years at a rate of 3.1%. Citing favourable inflation and dull growth, the Monetary Board of the central bank thereby decided to cut standing lending facility rate by 25 basis points to 8.50%, making it the first cut in 3 years. The standing deposit facility rate will, however, be maintained at 7.25%. The previous policy rate revision took place in March last year, with central bank tightening policy rate regime, citing it a necessary precaution against a build-up of inflationary pressures. Thereby, both deposit rate and lending rate was increased by 25 basis points each to 7.25% and 8.75% respectively. Central Bank expects yesterday's policy relaxation to spur economic growth, which slumped to a 16-year low of 3.1% last year to around 5% in 2018.
The Monetary Board felt it would be timely at this juncture to give a signal that the tightening phase of monetary policy should come to an end. Though we have seen growth come off desirable levels, Central Bank did maintain a tightening bias because we saw towards the last quarter of 2017 a peak in the headline inflation rate. At the time, the situation has improved quite significantly in terms of prospects for inflation. We felt that the overall picture now is such that it will be useful to use monetary policy to give a bit of a boost to the growth impulses in the economy.
Commenting on the rate cut, however, economists pointed out that the actual focus of the government at this point should be on real economic growth.
Looking from an economic growth point of view, economists would say that this is a favourable move in the revival of the economic growth process. So it is high time that the government has really buckled down to focusing on economic growth as their primary goal. But perhaps, looking from a different point of view, one would say that it's the realization of the government that economic growth process had to take off, and for that cost of finance is a major factor that has obstructed the economic growth. On the other side of it is that political situation, policy and the government itself, how the investors are going to look at the future scenario, whether it is going to be favorable or not. On the downside is that there is a possibility of oil prices going up. If the oil prices do go up, we are going to have a serious situation back again on the trade deficit, which has been one of the highest in last year as well. So if that happens, the lowering of interest rates sometimes might not create the economic growth that was envisaged, but rather it might promote more imports and thereby causing more pressure on the balance of payments front.
This reduction in interest rates is a positive move and a timely one at that, because I think the real sector would benefit from a lower interest rate regime to stimulate growth and also to help them to get back on their feet and also secure their overall profit margins. While that is the case, also we have seen inflation tapering down as a result of demand contraction coming through. Now, this facility predominantly is accessible only to the interbank market players, where they trade their surplus reserves. The thinking behind the reduction of the interest rates was primarily driven by the sluggishness in the economic activity, particularly in the real sector, where we found many companies tottering as a result of the double-digit interest rates prevalent in the market, along with the rupee depreciation, which also has added significant throughput cost into their cost of production. So all in all, gives central bank the breathing space to cut the standing lending facility, which is a positive move and is welcomed by all sectors.
And now to bring you a market update, Sri Lankan shares climbed today to their highest close in a week as investors queued from an ease of political uncertainty. The all-share price index ended 0.47% up at 6,474.70. Daily market turnover was just under 1 billion rupees, with foreign participation accounting for 62% of market activity. The Sri Lankan rupee closed 0.3% firmer at 155 rupees and 50 to 60 cents on exported dollar conversions and inward remittances. Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies during the day. Tensions between China and the US have escalated during the past few weeks, with China imposing tariffs on US products in retaliation to the US's move of imposing duties on aluminium and steel imports. Yesterday, China's ambassador to the United States said that it was China's preference to resolve the trade dispute with Washington through negotiations, but it takes two to tango. Speaking to reporters after an hour-long meeting at the State Department with acting US Secretary of State John Sullivan, he said the negotiations would still be China's preference and they will wait and see what the US will do.
Always been able to expand the good things and manage the not so good things.
Now, the number of users affected by Facebook's information set scandal seems to be far vast than previously stated. Facebook said yesterday that personal information of up to 87 million users may have been shared with political consultancy firm Cambridge Analytica, which is a considerable jump from the previous estimate of over 50 million users. It also said that it was taking steps to restrict the proposal or personal data available to third-party app developers.
Watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Time for sports. Now, it was a good day for the island nation as weightlifters Chaturanga Lakmal and Dinusha Gomez honoured Sri Lanka with 2 bronze medals at the 21st Commonwealth Games in the Gold Coast of Australia today. Lakmal was the first Sri Lankan to win a medal in this year's Games, while Dinusha Gomez won the country's second medal by clinching 3rd place in women's weightlifting.
Sri Lankan weightlifter Chaturanga Lakmal won the bronze medal for Sri Lanka in the men's 56 kg category today. Credit goes to Lakmal for the honour of bringing Sri Lanka's first medal of this year's Commonwealth Games. India's Guru Raja bagged silver, while Malaysia's Izzar Ahmed, who lifted 261 kg, won the gold medal. In women's weightlifting, Dinusha Gomez also claimed a 3rd place finish and secured a bronze in the 48 kg category. India's Chanu Saikom Mirabai claimed the gold in the event, while Mauritian Mari Ranaivasoa grabbed the silver medal.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures tomorrow will vary between 20 and 32 degrees Celsius. The country has experienced very warm weather conditions in the past few days, but the situation seems to be improving ever so slightly in the coming days. Scattered showers can be expected in the Central Hills, southern, western and southeastern parts of the country. Kandy may experience some heavy showers and lightning activity as well. That's it from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your City by City forecast.
Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. And before we go, we'd like to leave you with some visuals of Sri Lanka, or more like how Sri Lanka is seen through the eyes of a tourist, along with breathtaking sunsets, ocean views and lush green landscapes. He also saw our lifestyles and the rich ethnic flavour in our society. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.